There's a moment, just seconds before ignition, when two of the most powerful rockets ever built sit silently on their launch pads. Yet inside them, something completely different is happening. One is carefully keeping its propellant calm and predictable. The other is deliberately pushing its fuel closer to the edge of physics itself. On one side stands Space Launch System, rooted in decades of engineering heritage tracing back to the Saturn V or Saturn VI. On the other is Starship, loading propellants colder than almost anything used in operational rocketry, on purpose. Both rely on cryogenic propellants, but their approaches reveal a fundamental engineering divide. One prioritizes stability and proven predictability. The other pursues performance through aggressive optimization. Cryogenic propellants are not just cold, they exist in a fragile balance between phases. Liquid oxygen boils at minus 297 degrees Fahrenheit, minus 183 degrees Celsius, while liquid hydrogen reaches minus 423 degrees Fahrenheit, minus 253 degrees Celsius, just 36 degrees Fahrenheit above absolute zero. At these temperatures, even a small heat input, something as simple as sunlight hitting a tank wall or residual heat in a pipe, can trigger rapid phase change. When liquid turns to gas, it doesn't just expand, it explodes outward in volume up to 800 times larger. Inside a confined tank, that expansion can spike pressure by hundreds of psi, thousands of kPa in moments. Engineers are constantly walking a tightrope, venting excess gas while maintaining enough pressure to feed engines reliably. And then there's cavitation, one of the most destructive hidden threats in rocket engines. Inside turbopumps spinning at 20,000 to 35,000 RPM, pressure drops can cause tiny vapor bubbles to form in the liquid. When those bubbles collapse, they generate micro shockwaves capable of eroding metal surfaces over time. It's not a dramatic explosion, it's slow, invisible damage that can destroy an engine from the inside out. Preventing cavitation is one of the key reasons traditional rockets maintain carefully controlled temperature and pressure margins. That's exactly where SLS stays conservative. Built by NASA, it follows a philosophy proven over decades. Its core stage holds approximately 537,000 gallons, 2.03 million liters of liquid hydrogen, and 196,000 gallons, 742,000 liters of liquid oxygen. The hydrogen tank alone stretches over 130 feet, 40 meters, dominating the structure. Yet despite its enormous size, hydrogen's density, just about 70 kilograms per cubic meter, means it contributes less mass than its volume suggests. This is why hydrogen rockets look hollow compared to methane or kerosene systems. Because hydrogen boils so easily, SLS must constantly fight losses. During countdown, it replenishes propellant continuously, sometimes pumping thousands of gallons per minute just to maintain stable levels. Excess gas is vented through the iconic beanie cap at the top of the rocket, preventing dangerous pressure buildup. This process can last several hours, with carefully staged loading phases designed to avoid thermal shock. If you chill a metal structure too quickly, temperature gradients can cause it to crack or warp, so fueling must be slow, controlled, and deliberate. This entire system reflects lessons learned from earlier programs, including the Space Shuttle. Even tiny hydrogen leaks, measured in parts per million, have caused launch delays. Hydrogen molecules are so small they can escape through microscopic gaps, making sealing systems incredibly challenging. SLS inherits that complexity, choosing reliability over speed. Now, contrast that with Starship, and the philosophy flips completely. Instead of accepting boil-off and low density as unavoidable, SpaceX aggressively subcools its propellants. Liquid oxygen is pushed down to around minus 340 degrees Fahrenheit, minus 207 degrees Celsius, or even lower. Liquid methane, which normally boils at minus 269 degrees Fahrenheit, minus 162 degrees Celsius, is also cooled further to increase density. The result is a denser fluid, up to 10 to 12% denser for oxygen, and around 4 to 8% for methane, depending on conditions. At first glance, those percentages don't sound revolutionary, but scale changes everything. Starship's full stack can carry roughly 4,800 to 5,000 metric tons of propellant, about 10.5 to 11 million pounds. A 10% density increase at that scale means hundreds of extra tons of usable propellant without increasing tank size. That directly translates into higher delta V, longer burn duration, and significantly greater payload capacity. But here's where the tension builds, because pushing propellants colder doesn't just improve performance, it reduces your margin for error. When fluids approach their freezing points, they behave unpredictably. A temperature difference of just a few degrees can create localized freezing or stratification within the tank. Flow characteristics change, viscosity increases slightly, pumps must work harder to maintain stable flow. And yet, Starship leans into this challenge. Instead of fueling slowly over hours, it aims to load propellant rapidly, often in under an hour, with final topping in the last 30 minutes before launch. The strategy is simple but brutal. Minimize the time available for heat to leak into the system. Unlike SLS, which continuously replenishes boil-off, Starship operates in a narrow window. If something goes wrong, there's no slow recovery. You abort, recycle, and try again. Now, bring engines into the picture. Starship's Raptor engine operates at chamber pressures exceeding 300 bar, around 4,350 psi in advanced configurations. That's significantly higher than the RS-25 engines on SLS, which operate around 207 bar, about 3,000 psi. Higher pressure means higher efficiency and thrust, but it also demands incredibly stable propellant flow. Turbopumps must deliver hundreds of kilograms of propellant per second at precise pressures without introducing instabilities. Here's the surprising twist. Subcooled propellants actually help reduce cavitation. Because the fluid is further from its boiling point, it's less likely to form vapor bubbles under pressure drops. So while Starship introduces thermal challenges, it simultaneously solves one of the biggest issues in high-performance engines. This is the trade-off in its purest form: thermal risk in exchange for fluid stability and performance. And then comes reusability, the factor that changes everything. SLS, like Saturn V, is expendable. Its core stage flies once and is discarded. That means engineers only need to design it for a single cryogenic cycle. Starship, however, is designed to fly repeatedly, potentially dozens of times. That means its tanks, plumbing, and structural components must endure repeated transitions from ambient temperatures to deep cryogenic conditions and back. Every cycle introduces thermal fatigue. Metals expand and contract. Microfractures can develop. Over time, these stresses can accumulate and weaken the structure. Managing that is one of the hardest problems in reusable rocketry. This is where Starship's stainless steel construction becomes critical. Unlike aluminum-lithium alloys used in SLS, stainless steel retains and in some cases increases its strength at cryogenic temperatures. It also handles repeated thermal cycling better, resisting fatigue over multiple flights. While it's heavier per unit volume, the gains from densified propellants help offset that disadvantage. Now step back and look at the bigger picture. SLS represents controlled cryogenics, large tanks, slow fueling, continuous boil-off management, and a system designed to eliminate surprises. Starship represents optimized cryogenics, denser propellants, rapid fueling, higher pressures, and operation closer to physical limits. One minimizes risk by staying within known boundaries. The other accepts risk to expand those boundaries. And this difference doesn't just affect fueling, it reshapes the entire vehicle. Denser propellants shift mass distribution, affecting stability during ascent. Faster fueling changes ground operations and launch cadence. Higher pressures demand stronger, more resilient engine components. Every design choice cascades into another. This is why Starship development has been so iterative.
Early tests revealed issues with pressure control, propellant slosh, and engine stability. Each failure wasn't random, it was a direct consequence of operating closer to physical limits, and each fix pushes the system further toward reliability. Meanwhile, SLS continues to deliver consistency. Its RS-25 engines are among the most efficient hydrogen engines ever built, with decades of flight heritage. Its systems behave predictably because they were designed not to surprise engineers.
So now the real question emerges: which philosophy scales better? Because this isn't just about one rocket versus another, it's about the future of spaceflight. If you want a few high-value, extremely reliable missions, SLS makes sense. But if your goal is high-frequency launches, orbital refueling, and building infrastructure in space, the Starship model becomes far more compelling. And that leads to the aha moment. The real difference between these two systems isn't just temperature, pressure, or fuel type, it's how they treat uncertainty. SLS reduces uncertainty by avoiding extremes. Starship manages uncertainty by engineering through extremes. One avoids the edge of physics, the other operates right on it. If Starship succeeds, it unlocks a new regime, where rockets can be turned around quickly, refueled rapidly, and launched again with aircraft-like cadence. That's what's needed for missions to the Moon, Mars, and beyond. But if it fails fast, because there's very little margin for error when operating this close to physical limits. Two rockets, same physics, radically different answers. One refines the past, the other is actively inventing the future. And over the next decade, as both continue to evolve, we'll see which philosophy truly defines humanity's path forward in space. Because in the end, it's not just about how cold your propellant is, it's about how far you're willing to push engineering itself. If you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to subscribe Rocketry and follow us on Facebook and Rumble for more high-level space engineering breakdowns.